All right. Good day to you all. In about 27 minutes, a short while, we'll be joined by Carl Scow, who you all know well from his time here, and who is here in New York with us as the Deputy Executive Director of the World Food Program. And he will speak to you about his recent visit to Gaza and the WFP's latest assessment on the humanitarian situation there. Tomorrow, our guest will be Ugochi Daniels, who's the Deputy Director of Operations for the International Organization for Migration. She'll be here to brief you on the occasion of the International Migrants' Day, which is observed on December 18th. Turning to Gaza, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that heavy rains fell on Gaza yesterday, flooding many in the areas and worsening the struggle of displaced Palestinians. The rains, coupled with the absence of effective waste management, are significantly elevating the risk of spreading disease. The ability of the United Nations to receive incoming aid is being significantly undermined by a shortage of trucks within Gaza, the continuing lack of fuel, and telecommunications blackouts, as well as increasing number of staff who are unable to reach the Rafah crossing safely due to the intensity of the ongoing hostilities. More aid and fuel are needed to enter Gaza, but equally more capacity is needed in Gaza to handle the upcoming aid. Also, yesterday, an UNRWA school that was sheltering internally displaced persons in Jabalia refugee camp was hit, with casualties reported. The same school had been hit several times previously. UNRWA is verifying recent reports of incidents at UNRWA facilities. To give you some context, since 7 October, 156 incidents impacting UNRWA premises have been reported. Quick update for you from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that there is a surge in security incidents targeting humanitarian workers in Jugu territory in Ituri province. Yesterday, armed assailants intercepted a truck belonging to a national Congolese non-governmental organization and robbed its passengers. This happened near Jugu on a route that is considered dangerous by humanitarian workers due to the presence of armed groups. On the same day, heavy rains further delayed humanitarian operations until late at night, exposing humanitarian workers to more risks and attacks. Despite the security situation, our humanitarian partners are continuing to provide assistance. In November, some 125,000 displaced people in Jugu territory received emergency food assistance. OCHA stresses the need to ensure humanitarian access to vulnerable people in Jugu territory, which is home to over 686,000 displaced human beings. And in South Sudan, the Nicholas Haysom, the special not in South Sudan, here in New York. Nicholas Haysom, the special representative, the Secretary General, and head of peacekeeping mission in the country in South Sudan, told Security Council members that the dire economic situation of the country, together with the influx of returnees from Sudan, climate shocks, and the fragile political environment, suggests that the December 2024 elections would take place in an environment of elevated tensions. He underscored that the mission is implementing proactive measures aimed at mitigating the risk of pre-electoral, electoral, and post-electoral violence. However, with the necessary political will and sense of urgency and compromise, the South Sudanese could indeed establish the right conditions for these elections. And in Ukraine, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that it is concerned about the plight of civilians during the winter, as yet again today there was another wave of attacks in the Kherson and Odessa regions in the south of the country. These attacks damaged critical civilian infrastructure, including homes, a hospital, and a school. Our humanitarian colleagues on the ground also report that attacks killed and injured civilians. also today, but this time closer to the front lines. In the Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Dnipro regions, attacks have destroyed and damaged homes, adding new challenges for people who are already dealing with limited access to electricity, water, and gas. That's according to local authorities. The attacks are happening at temperatures and are dropping below zero in many parts of Ukraine. We, along with our humanitarian partners, are mobilizing and providing support to people impacted by the attacks that took place today in Odessa and Kherson. People whose homes were destroyed or damaged have received temporary accommodation, emergency shelter kits, as well as legal aid. Since this morning, our colleagues on the ground have been providing psychological support to people impacted, registering them for cash assistance, all that complementing the government's own efforts. In Ukraine, in October, November, humanitarian workers reached 800,000 people with specific assistance to cope with the winter. More than 100,000 were supported with heating, and the same number of people with winter clothing. Additionally, more than 80,000 people received critical household items, including blankets, mattresses, bed linens, and other items for the winter. Lastly, a new analysis from the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, on the situation in Lebanon reveals further deterioration in almost every aspect of children's lives, as the 4-year-long crisis showed no signs of abating. The emotional burden is particularly heavy in conflict-impacted southern Lebanon and among Palestinian children living in that area in Lebanon. According to the analysis, 26% of households said they had school-aged children not attending school. That's up from 18% in April of 2023, when a similar assessment was conducted. Several dozen schools in southern Lebanon have been closed since October of this year due to the intensification of hostilities. That has an impact on 6,000 young people, 6,000 students. UNICEF is urging the government to show a clear commitment to children's rights and take strong action to support, protect, and ensure essential services for all children in Lebanon. That's it. Deji, Amélie, and then Ephraim.
Questions on couple of different topics. First one, do you have any update on the Sapphire or the Yemen or Nautica tanker of UNDP there?
Yeah, so there's a pledging conference going on this afternoon in conference room 3 to raise funds. The pledging conference really aims at helping us repay the money that UNDP borrowed from different UN entities. As you know, the first part of the operation, the emergency part, which is transferring the oil from the Safar to what is now called the Yemen tanker, was concluded. $122 million was generously contributed from member states, the private sector, and global citizens, but leaving a $22 million gap. Despite that gap, the UN went ahead with the operation. UNDP had to borrow money from a number of funds, including the Central Emergency Response Fund. So we're trying, with this pledging conference, we're trying to reimburse.
Okay, so the second topic on Gaza. The Israeli Foreign Minister, Mr. Cohen, said, and I quote, "Israel will continue the war against Hamas with or without international support. A ceasefire at current stage is a gift to the terrorist organization Hamas and will allow it to return and threaten the residents of Israel." Does the Secretary General feel disappointed on this statement?
Listen, I think we've heard similar statements. Our efforts, our push for a humanitarian ceasefire for the sake of civilians will continue.
But this is contrary to what the Israeli government's aim, isn't it?
I think that would be the correct analysis, Deji.
Okay, so the third topic, Russian President Putin, when talking about the war in Ukraine, he said he will continue the operation until the objective has been fulfilled, which is denazification and demilitarization. Again, does the Secretary General feel disappointed that
Look,
this will continue?
the Secretary General's efforts are focused on supporting the people in Ukraine who are suffering from this ongoing war. We continue to push and advocate for an end to this conflict in line with international law, in line with General Assembly resolutions. Amélie, then Ephraim, then Ibtisam.
Thanks, Steph. My question is on DRC. The DRC government sent a letter to the Security Council requesting the help of MONUSCO for logistical support in the next week election, asking MONUSCO to help even in the provinces when they are not deployed to bring electoral material. So whether or not the council answer positively to the request, I mean, how do you see this request from the DRC government 1 week before the election? How worried are you that they are not ready to organize the election?
Well, yes, the letter's been received by the Security Council. We'll wait to see what action the Council takes, but that doesn't mean that we haven't been doing quite a bit in support of the Congolese authorities, both in terms of logistical support, of providing transport of electoral material, helping with campaign to encourage women's participation, to the fight against disinformation, as well as the training of police officers during the election. So we will continue to support and do whatever we are mandated to do, and we very much hope that the elections will manage to go ahead.
Just a follow-up. In the letter, they kind of hint that without the support of MONUSCO in the other provinces, they might not be able to organize the election everywhere on the same day. How worried are you that that will happen?
Look, I mean, obviously the letter raises a number of questions, but we'll continue to support the Congolese government as much as we can, and the Congolese people, in fact. Ephraim, then Ibtisam.
Thank you, Steph. How did the Secretary General react to the internal memo sent to him by over 50 UN staff criticizing the Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Ms. Nderitu, for not condemning what they called Israel's collective punishment of the Palestinian civilians and also their genocidal rhetoric by the Israeli officials against
Look, it's
us?
important that UN staff be able to express themselves. The Secretary General continues to have full confidence in the work of Ms. Nderitu.
Quick follow-ups. Ms. Nderitu has always been very vocal and very active in calling out every little sign she sees around the world that their genocide may be happening. She spoke out for Darfur recently, even Nagorno-Karabakh, against the hateful rhetoric coming out of that. Nagorno-Karabakh, why has she been silent on Gaza?
Look, I don't think she's been completely silent on the impact of on what has been going on in Gaza, and I think we and the Secretary General, who speaks for the whole system, has been extremely vocal.
One more. Has the Secretary General asked her not to use the word genocide and not to speak on what's happening?
No, he's not asked. He's not. It's not his. He has not asked her not to use. Not to use certain words. She's doing her job. As I've said here over and over again, you know, the labeling of an event as genocide is within the purview of courts and not the Secretary General, as far as the Secretariat is concerned.
Sorry, on that, Stéphane. I'm hearing from reliable sources in this building that it is the Secretary General who doesn't want press elements to come out of this building mentioning the word genocide. So you're denying that?
I'm not aware of any such order.
Okay. On the use, I'm sorry.
That's
but
okay.
I'm trying to clarify things.
Yeah, please. Me too.
I know he doesn't take the word genocide lightly, but I'm sure he, as all of us have heard, who have been following, we have been reading hundreds, if not thousands, of scholars and law experts around the world warning against what they see as very clear and straightforward Israeli genocidal rhetoric. We've all heard talk about second Nakba, Palestinians being described as human animals, pop singers singing to jubilant soldiers songs calling for the complete destruction of Gaza, pushing Palestinians to the Sinai Desert, bombing in real time civilian infrastructure, all of that. Is that at all raising, is the Secretary General at all concerned, alarmed that a genocide might be happening?
Look, the Secretary General is very concerned and has expressed his concern and his horror is at what is happening and the way that civilians have paid the ultimate price in what is going on. He has called out against the use of dehumanizing language that you refer to, and he will continue to do so.
Has he been proactively seeking meetings with these experts and lawyers to see what they're talking about?
He has been getting a lot of
genocide
he's been getting a lot
about.
of advice from a lot of people. Ibtisam.
No, yes. I have, I don't know if you saw the videos circulating of Israeli soldiers filming themselves inside a mosque, singing Hanukkah songs, trampling with their shoes inside. First of all, if you have a comment on that, also on the problematic of using not only the mosque, but also the symbols of the Jewish religion that has nothing to do with the occupation, and putting them in this place and using them in a negative way. Do you have a comment on these two things?
Yeah, I've seen the videos. I think the desecration of religious sites should not be tolerated, and is against common decency, to say the least. And we've also seen that, according to the reports that I've seen, that the soldiers that were involved in this have been disciplined.
But do you have also comments on the fact that a religion being used that has nothing to do with what's happening?
I mean, religious sites need to be respected and cannot be perverted in one way or another.
And the Israelis announced last week that they are building new settlements. Any comments?
Our position on the illegality of settlement remains the same. Edith, and then Stefano, who's, I think, raising his hand.
According to a UN report, the Taliban closed 23 state-sponsored women protection centers in Afghanistan where survivors of gender-based violence could seek refuge, and Taliban officials are now sending Afghan women to prison to protect them from gender-based violence. Does the Secretary General have any comment on this practice?
The reports are extremely, extremely disturbing and appear to be another step backwards in the rights that women and girls in Afghanistan are not, I mean, entitled is probably the wrong word, but are have the inalienable human rights of women and girls in Afghanistan. Stefano.
Thank you, Stéphane. Sorry, I arrived late, so I don't know if you spoke already about this. But about the UN 6 repayment of 63.6 million of former UN official that was fired in January, Vitaly Vaschenbaum, for that scandal that was revealed last year. My question is, first of all, exactly the amount, if the 63.6 million looks a lot for one person to be able to repay. And I think if he doesn't repay, UN will cut off his pension, if you want to understand. So just a question is how the UN came up with this exactly amount of money.
There is an ongoing procedure within the UN's administrative justice system regarding the gentleman that you mentioned, and I won't comment while this is ongoing. I never thought I'd leave you silent, Stefano. Oh, okay, Ephraim, and then I'm going to go
One
get our
last
guest.
one, also on, just to conclude this subject of the genocide today, waiting for a court to decide whether or not a genocide is taking place may take years. Wouldn't that be too late? And my question is, isn't the Secretary General afraid of going down in history as the UN chief under whose watch a genocide took place and he said nothing about it? Isn't he afraid of that
I
prospect?
don't agree with you that he hasn't said anything. And I think he has been very vocal from day one. Deji, so much for my escape.
Anytime schedule for this SG's end of the year presser?
Trust me, if I knew something about that, I would share it with you. I like nothing more than having somebody else answer questions. We will go get Mr. Scow.